For decades, the country of Russia faced the harsh rule of the Tsars. These leaders oppressed and tyrannized the Russian working class. After years of hardships, the working class people of Russia had had enough. The failure of the Russian Tsars to carry out their responsibilities caused the Bolshevik Revolution, where leaders saw a new government that would protect the rights of the proletariat.
Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels co-authored the Communist Manifesto in 1848. Their beliefs of equality and spreading the wealth were the bases of Marxist ideology. This ideology offered rights to the proletariat, which they desperately needed. Marx and Engels' ideas provided a foundation for communist ideology. Communist meetings and rallies spread these beliefs throughout Russia. Communist ideals provided the fuel for the fire of revolution.
The rule of Tsar Nicholas II was cruel for the working class citizens of Russia. His policies benefited only those who were close to him. This included the royal family as well as many of the wealthy citizens of Russia who were close to the Tsar. The proletariat of Russia was deprived of its rights by an oppressive government that did not care about them and sought only to benefit itself. As the leader of this government, Nicholas II failed to fulfill his responsibility to protect his people. Tensions between the working class and the Tsars continued to grow. Despite pleas for the government to step in and make changes in the working conditions for the Russian people, no changes were made. This lack of action caused the public opinion of Nicholas II to fall even lower. Having such a low public opinion proved disastrous for Nicholas. Riots of working class men filled the streets of Russia as the cruelty continued. These people took to the streets instead of working in hopes that the Tsars would notice and make a change. Tsar Nicholas II did not, however, make the changes in society that the people demanded. Georgy Gapon, an early revolutionary, led public demonstrations attempting to alter the commanding tyrant's way of governing Russia. Gapon was leading a march to the Tsar's palace when the tragic incident known as Bloody Sunday occurred. Secret police fired openly into the crowd of demonstrators, killing many of them. Luckily, he was saved from the gunfire. He fled to Europe, escaping the imprisonment for his actions. There he was welcomed by other revolutionaries. Among these men was Vladimir Lenin.
Lenin was another leader of the revolution. His ideas for society came mostly from Marx and Engels. He foresaw a society in which the people were all equal, one in which no one was better than any other, and no one was lesser than any other. The working class of Russia agreed strongly with Lenin's ideals. After years of oppression and being deprived of their rights, they were eager to accept ideas that meant they would receive equality with everyone, including the government and upper class. Lenin was also a great political leader. His speaking at rallies encouraged the working class to overthrow the Russian government. He became the foremost leader of the Bolshevik Party and inspired the Russian people to take action and make a change in their government.
Meetings between the political leaders of the Bolsheviks were held quite often. These meetings had to be held in secret to avoid incrimination by the current Russian government. This government did not approve of the ideas the Bolsheviks were spreading throughout Russia and tried to suppress them as much as possible. These meetings were held to plan Bolshevik rallies, protests, and occasionally riots. They became the foundation for the revolution because without them, the Bolsheviks would not have been able to organize themselves and they would have fallen apart before anything was accomplished.
Before long, the February Revolution had begun. In early March of 1917, the Bolsheviks took to the streets of Petrograd, the capital, in open protest and entered into a few violent clashes with the police. This revolution lasted less than a week, but in that short time, the Bolsheviks were able to gain the support of the Russian army and remove Tsar Nicholas II from his position of power, successfully bringing the Russian Empire to an end. A provisional government was put into place in Russia for a time after the revolution was finished.
This provisional government, however, did not satisfy the needs of the Bolsheviks for long. The October Revolution took place on October 25, 1917, and was the final piece of the rebellion in the capital. The Bolsheviks were able to overthrow the provisional government and finally seize power over the Russian government. This revolution was not widely received, but it did result in the nationwide Russian Civil War that lasted from 1917 to 1922. This civil war resulted in Russia's withdrawing from World War I and caused the deaths of many on both sides. The Red Army of the Bolsheviks emerged victorious over the White Army that opposed the Bolsheviks. In 1922, the war came to an end and the Soviet Union was formed. The Bolsheviks had their ultimate victory.
After achieving victory in the Russian Civil War, it came time for a new government to be installed in Russia. Vladimir Lenin, along with other leaders of the revolution, led this government. Following the ideas of Marx and Engels, Lenin installed a government that provided rights and equality for the people of Russia. Joseph Stalin and Lenin were somewhat close while Lenin led the Soviet Union, and Stalin learned a lot from Lenin. He also followed Lenin's teachings upon his installment as leader of the Soviet Union after Lenin's death in 1924. The lives of the Russian people were improved for a time after the installation of the Soviet government. They finally gained the rights that they deserved, and now they were all equals. The Russian people now had a government that was willing and able to protect the rights of its people properly. This period of prosperity did not, however, last that long for the Russian people. Joseph Stalin did not live up to the proletariat's expectations of a leader that they had fought so hard for. Stalin quickly instituted a more totalitarian-style government that oppressed its people just as badly, if not worse, than the previous monarchy had. Stalin's totalitarian rule became the opposite of what the Bolsheviks had hoped for during the revolution. He became the overall superior of the government and boosted the status of his political allies. This greatly contradicted the Bolshevik ideal of a government equal to its people.
Despite a long-fought battle for their rights, the proletariat of Russia was ultimately left in the same position as before. Their revolution against an oppressive monarchy left them under a totalitarian government that failed in its responsibility to protect the rights of its people just as much as the previous one had. The proletariat fought hard for their rights, and after the battles and bloodshed, they failed.